Welcome to John Maxwell's Big Bucket List. We're going to get moving. To introduce myself and obviously for anybody that might be watching the recording, I'm Jeff. I'm an executive leadership coach and trainer. And as far as getting to know me goes, this is me. That was my first job as a 16-year-old. I had an opportunity to dress up as the costume character I had so many birthday parties with, and actually moved into leadership roles inside of Chuck E. Cheese, moving up and down the East Coast, helping to open stores, and really beginning my leadership journey at Chuck E. Cheese, hiring literally thousands of teenagers and young adults to work inside of a kids restaurant. Moved from there into Hasbro and board games, and anybody that knows me well knows that that's still a pretty big affection of mine, something I love to do pretty regularly with my family. And likewise, came in to work with them during a pretty big growth period and opening up locations across the United States and running the Mid-Atlantic for Hasbro. Moved into GameStop, where I ran 30 locations and over 300 employees. Also, again, through a large merger time, having the opportunity to open up a bunch of locations with them as they dramatically expanded across the East Coast and the world. Jumped into Lumber Liquidators, where I had my first commission sales. Hired a bunch of managers who ended up becoming managers and running their own stores. That took me into a place where I started looking at commission sales inside of Tesla and Solar City. And then through Vivint Smart Home, as a third-party vendor with them, had the opportunity to work with a bunch of companies, standing up in front of rooms and training. Inside Chuck E. Cheese, I was a trainer as well. Trained as a 16-year-old, new hires that were brought on, and then also store managers that were hired came and worked with me for 10 weeks before they went off to their own locations. And I kind of had the training bug at that point. I love standing in front of people and talking and sharing and getting some good ahas. That's really what brings us to where we are today, because as I went on, I became the team leader at a Keller Williams office, running over 200 agents and their teams, and then moving into starting my own business-to-business lead generation type company through Legion Prospecting, and then a coach through Business Maps. And then started my own coaching programs and training programs outside of that circle. Y'all know me through most of these. Be More Coaching, which I've been signing my emails Be More for 30 years, and it just seemed like an appropriate name for a kid from Baltimore to add to their coaching business. We've got the Take 5 training workshops, leadership development workshops, hiring workshops, and then obviously many of you all know me through Cyberbacker. I was one of the co-founders for the Cyberbacker Maryland franchise here. Shara and Irene that are still on the call, obviously love to come in and assist and greet and talk with each of you on a pretty regular basis. And so really the idea here is pretty simple, and that is when I talk to business owners locally, one of the first questions I ask is, what obstacle are you facing? And if the answer is I'm facing, sometimes that's a coaching solution. If the answer is my team is facing, often that's a training solution. And if the answer is I need a team or my team has too much work to do, often that's a leverage situation through Cyberbacker, where you can add somebody new to your team, new to your business. The faster you add leverage to your business, the faster your business can grow, because we all know that we can't do things by ourselves, which takes us right back into coaching. So y'all are here today for the first part of John Maxwell's Big Bucket List. I'm going to tell you a little bit of the story, and before we get going, who here, just raise of hand. I can see you all. I know you guys might only be able to see the small square in the corner, but just small raise of hands. How many of you all have read books by John Maxwell in the past? Okay, great. So John Maxwell is probably, like, if I think back, I can remember reading a book by, I read Stephen Covey, I read some Les Brown, early days of starting off on my management career. When I was working at Chuck E. Cheese, my general manager actually pulled me aside at one point. I started getting the nickname, the Terminator. And he pulled me aside and he was like, Jeff, I don't know if you know this or not, but when people mess up, you don't have to fire them, you can coach them. And he handed me a book called The 1 Minute Manager. And from there, like, my mind kind of blew. I was like, oh yeah, well, that makes sense. But I didn't really know how to. I read The 1 Minute Manager and realized by reading The 1 Minute Manager that I probably wasn't quite that good yet. I didn't know if I could manage people at a minute at a time. From there, developed Take 5 system. And I was like, if I can't do it in a minute, I should be able to at least manage people in 5 minutes, right? We'll multiply that out and get moving there. And so as I began down that journey, and I really call that my management journey, I wouldn't necessarily call it my leadership journey. I stumbled across John Maxwell's book, 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. Book comes into this story here in a little bit, but it was the first John Maxwell book that I've read. I've literally bought it 3 times hardback just for myself, each edition that's come out. I've bought the audio version twice because I lost access to the first one. It's got to be one of my favorite leadership books, highly recommended for those of you starting down your leadership journey. And with that, I always wanted to meet John. And one day, Keller Williams, while I was the team leader, they brought John in to be the keynote for one of the talks, and I did everything I could to get like front and center at that event just to talk with them. And afterwards, I found out that they actually had this lunch meet and greet that you could have paid extra to go to, and my heart sunk because somehow I didn't get that email or didn't read it or whatever the case was, and I didn't actually have a chance to meet John. And so I've been looking for opportunities to do that would fit into my schedule over the past couple of years, because I realized, hey, this is something I want to do. I connected actually with some people that had been in some of his books and some people that knew him well, just hoping that I'd get a chance to get invited to some of those occasions. And finally, I saw that John had a conference that he'd put up, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a moment. But when I was part of Keller Williams and Business Maps, I ran into one of those people that I just mentioned, one of the people that I knew that was close to John, and her name's Diana Kokoska. Anybody that doesn't know Diana, I'm sorry. One of these days, hopefully you have a chance to meet her. Y'all should definitely meet her. She grew up in a home where her dad sold tickets to like inspirational leaders and speakership events, right? So if you've ever heard of Jim Rohn, if you've ever heard of Zig Ziglar, they've spent the night at her house, right? She woke up and had breakfast with these guys and her dad, before they went off to their speaking engagement. I met her at a coaching party at one point in time. Her and my wife bonded on the dance floor. I'm blown away by the energy that this woman has. And the things that she does. And she led a coaching course that I attended a few years ago that really kind of got my mind back into, again, coaching leadership, back to that Chuck E. Cheese space where I didn't have to fire people, I could coach people. Because over the years, who knows that sometimes the leaders that are leading you influence how it is that you're leading your people, right? And that's what had happened with me. As I worked through different companies and different companies had me following their programs, I drifted a little bit away from my Take 5 question system, which I feel like really pours into the people that I lead. At one of Diana's conferences, she really brought me back into that. Coaching as a leader, asking questions as a salesperson. I'd asked a lot of questions over the years. So coaching as a leader took me back into that asking questions standpoint. And so I went to meet John at one of his events. It's called His Day to Grow. I found out that he was doing it with Malcolm Gladwell, another author I love. And I thought, how in the world could I not take that opportunity to go meet 2 authors that just have been really impactful in my thinking, in my development over the years. And so I paid for the extra platinum package. Little did I know that I think more people paid for the platinum package, which was the top package, than paid for the VIP package, which was a little bit lower down. There are a lot of people that wanted to beat John and Malcolm, apparently. So I rushed up on the stage. I got first dibs, had a chance to shake their hand, say thank you, and tell them how impactful I'd been. And it fell a little short, I'll be honest with you. But as I walked out of the room, I walked into Diana Kokoska, who invited me to stand with her as she stood in line, and we chit-chatted. She gave me her phone number. Jeff, could give me a call sometime. And I was the guy that just called the next day. My wife was like, I don't know if she really meant to call her. And I'm like, I don't know. She gave me her number. I'm gonna give it a go. So I texted her. I told her how appreciative I was for the conversation, and she picked up the phone and called me and invited me to go with her and John to a golf club in Florida in December and just kind of sit in a room and ask questions for a day. My heart raced, and of course I said, how could I not? Because John obviously is a big leadership expert. Diana has been a mindset and vision expert that I've been a fan of for years. And with those two, they both agree on a system that this Take 5 system that really is going to help you understand and see some stats that I'm going to show you here that just really kind of dramatically changed their life. One thing that I love about John is he always sits down on the stage, and as he's sitting down on the stage, you know, he always tends to open with, "Hi, my name is John, and I'm your friend," right? Because he realizes that when you get to know people, when you get down to earth, when you break bread with people, that that big things have a chance to happen. And one thing that's always motivated me about John is that he truly believes that every leader that he meets and every leader in this room has the ability to change the world. And a lot of that comes from a ripple effect, right? That as we work with our people and we help change our people and we develop the leaders that work for us, those people come back and literally start to change the world bit by bit. And so this is John's 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. I had a chance to meet him in that room, and I actually called him out because there's something that I think people that have only read all the editions would know. I'll tell you a little bit more about that at the end. So again, front and center, next to John on the stage, meeting Malcolm, running to Diana on the way out. She wrote a book called Becoming More. I bought that for every one of my daughters. If you guys want a mindset and vision book for your kids, this is a great one. It's got some great activities in the back. This is all of us in a trip that we went to on a ranch in Utah, where we had a chance to hang out with Tony, Diana's husband, Chad Hymas, who was also an internationally known speaker, who was paralyzed on that ranch a few years before, and then head out to Florida to hang out with Diana and John and John's golf coaches, which was pretty fun too. She believes in giving some experiences. I even had a chance to do a dad joke with John Maxwell for anybody that enjoys our dad jokes. Can you guys hear the volume? No? All right. Some might say it's my bread and butter. All right. So Diana's the mindset expert. Here's some numbers. I want you guys to write these numbers down. If you have the VIP workbook, I really want you to take an opportunity to pull it out and start filling some of this in. Because these numbers, you're going to think I made them up, honestly. Because some of these numbers are so alarming that they just can't be believed. John's a leadership expert. Diana's a vision expert. Who here has ever heard of the 80-20 rule? All right, so somebody come off mute. Tell me what the 80-20 rule is.
Pareto.
That's right. Pareto's principle.
The vast bulk of what's accomplished is accomplished by 20% of the people.
Yeah, and I think most of us would probably say when we look at our business, when we look at our work, when we look at the people that we've worked with, we see that, right? Like you've got some superstars that are really running a big block of the sales volume inside of your sales teams. You've got some superstars that are doing a lot of the work and a lot of the construction that's happening on the other end. And then you've got everybody else, right? The 80-20 rule kind of swings both ways, to be honest with you. 20% of the people on the bottom, by the way, are doing like zero work. And so that's a little bit of a hint as to what to come. If I'm telling you 63% of your workforce are what? What do you think?
Disengaged.
That's right. That's right, Derek. Those are the number of employees that are not engaged. All right. So here we go. What I'd love you to do is tell me, like, how do you recognize a not engaged employee? There's a little bit of a hint, right? So if you've got somebody working for you that's not engaged, what are some of the signs?
15 coffee breaks.
All right. Bunch of coffee breaks, bunch of smoke breaks, whatever it is, anything that can get them off their desk, out of the room. Go ahead. Anyone else?
Anomalous performance numbers.
All right, there we go. Average numbers, no numbers, very poor numbers. I think lack of quick follow-up is one that I've often seen, right? Had a coaching call yesterday where I was talking to somebody about signs that you can see that like notes that they might have on a particular project, management type opportunity, like the notes have been pencil whipped. You can tell that they weren't real conversations, right? Their follow-up is falling behind inside of the sales force. Overall, they just don't seem happy to be there, right? All right, so 15%. We had 63% already. We've got 15%. What is 15%, do you think, in your workforce? I'll give you a hint. Here we go. 15% of your people are actively disengaged. So that's one step farther than disengaged. What do you think actively disengaged in your workforce is? We've all had these people working with us or for us, I guarantee. What's one sign that's different than disengaged versus actively disengaged?
They talk poorly about teammates.
All right. Talk poorly about teammates. That's a good one. Thank you. Another thing that they do often is nothing. They just show up, right? They're the ones that are late every day. They're the ones that check out early. I'm ashamed to admit, I've been that guy once or twice where I knew that it was time for me to move on, and I just stopped showing up. You know, I used to be the guy that got in at 7 a.m. and stayed till 7 p.m. And all of a sudden I was the guy that was showing up at 9, like on the dot, and walking out at 5 on the dot, right? Like, you know, just enough to make everybody think that I was still there. But people noticed because I was no longer the guy that was staying there till 7 p.m., right? Actively disengaged. The ones that are just putting it in just to get by and get the check for whatever reason. You know, the ones that are calling in sick because they got a fever, right? So, all right, so that leaves 22%. That's 22% left if we're adding up to 100. This is where some good news comes in, Derek. I know you're looking for that. Sharina, I can see you're a little sadder. So just seeing those numbers. So what does the 22% represent? There's only one category left.
Is it people who actively working?
That's right. The ones that are engaged. Woohoo! Which again, still kind of falls out to that 80-20 rule. Only 22% of our employees are actively engaged in their work. So here's, you know, Will Ferrell cheering us on. Mom, the meatloaf. Let's get it. All right. So what I want you to do, though, is I want you to recognize both. Who are the people that are actively engaged on your team? And who are the people that are not engaged, maybe actively disengaged on your team? Because if you can identify the top and you can identify the bottom, then we understand who the 60% are, right? Is that fair? This is something I learned really early in. I want you to write this down, by the way. If you're not writing this down, please do. But there's something that I learned early in. And again, I mentioned the Stephen Covey book. What you focus on, what? Who knows the end of that? What you focus on, what?
Expands.
That's right. What you focus on expands. And Stephen Covey shows a diagram inside of his book that talks about your area of control versus your area the area that's out of your control. And if I focus on what's out of my control, what happens? More things get out of control. Right? Because when I'm focusing on expands, what I can control shrinks. When I focus on what I can control, what happens? That's right. I saw your mouth there, Sharina. Thank you. Say it again. Go ahead.
It expands.
That's right. If I focus on what I can control, my influence grows. That's the sphere of influence. When I focus on what I can control, my influence grows. When I focus on what I can't control, my influence shrinks because it's out of my control. And so what I found out really early in leadership is if I focus on the 20% of bottom performers, what do you think happens?
Expand.
Top performers.
Yeah, that's right. The bottom performers expand. That seems ironic. That seems crazy. I don't understand how that could happen. I'm focusing on the bottom like they should be getting better, but that's not what happens because then we're leaving behind our top performers. We're not giving the attention that our top performers need to grow them. When I focus on top performers, what do you think happens to the 60% of people that see that I'm focused on the people that are doing the best job? They begin to move towards the people that are doing the best because they want that attention too. They want to be top performers. They see where the attention is. The top performers begin to grow, which gives energy to the other performers on your team. And you're able to move your whole team up by focusing on the top, by looking forward and not looking down, right? When I look down, what happens? We fall. I just got a white rug in my dining room. This might have been one of the most idiotic things we've ever done, but we really wanted to brighten up our dining room. I don't know why. This white area rug in our dining room. And I realized that what we focus on expands, right? And so every day that we've sat down to eat at that dining room table, guess what I tell my kids? Because I know they're going to drop food. This one kid, I swear to you, I don't know how she does it, but she gets spaghetti sauce on every finger when she's eating spaghetti. Like literally on purpose. I'm not even sure what's happened, but like the biggest mess. Every time she eats spaghetti, she's like dips like her fingers in ranch, like intentionally somehow. I don't know what it is, but like, I know, Sharina, stop. I get it. She likes those Charlie subs and like scoops all the, triple ranch on all these things. But the point being is, what do you think would happen if I said to her, hey, make sure you don't get any spaghetti sauce on the rug?
She would get it on the rug.
It would happen. She'd get it on the rug. So what I've caught myself saying to her every night since we've gotten this new rug, I say, hey, make sure when that food drips, because it will, drip it on the table, right? Drip it on the table. Drip it on the plate. When it drips, drip it on the plate. And miraculously, for 2 weeks, nothing's happened yet. Knock on wood. All right. Who wrote down their names? The names. You guys got your list? That was my stories while everybody was making their list. Some people have bigger teams than others. Okay. I also want you to note, what is your average team's salary? The average salary, the average amount of money that the person on your teams make. All right. This could be operations. This could be sales, right? Whatever the person is that's on your team, whichever one you want to focus on. If there's two averages, if there's an average for operations and an average for sales, write both of those down. If there's some sort of production, that's also fine. Write down the average salary for somebody on your team. If you don't know it, write down the highest, write down the lowest, add them together, divide by 2, right? That's the easiest way. You can get the true number later if you really want to dig in. What I want you to understand is that your average salary is also your average turnover cost. So if you have a disengaged employee who quits, that's how much it just cost your company. If you have a high-performing employee who quits, do you think it cost your company more or cost your company less?
More.
That's right. A lot more, right? So lost productivity, as we're looking at these numbers, 8.8 trillion in lost productivity in 2024. That's the global impact of lost productivity. Disengaged employees, 18% productivity loss, 50% lost profitability, 37% higher absenteeism, 43% higher turnover. 50% of your employees will change jobs each year. 4 million Americans quit their jobs each month. 1 in 3 employees will quit a new job within 6 months. And resigning employees make up 70% of all employees turnover. That literally matches the numbers we just showed you. Amazing how that works, right? 68% of all of our employees are disengaged. 70% of all employee turnover comes from resignations. And what we know is that 50% of the annual salary will be the initial cost of employee turnover for somebody that's in your operations. Those are usually a little bit more systematic. Somebody that has some extra experience can come in, learn the role pretty quickly, and jump back into place. But somebody in sales, it could be up to 200% of their annual salary, their annual income that it actually costs your business. So if I've got somebody that's making $150,000 a year in sales, how much does it cost my business to replace them? 150.
Almost everything you got.
It'll cost about $300,000.
Integrate.
And that comes from lost sales, by the way, right? It comes from poor follow-up from disengaged employees. It comes from the hiring process, the training process, and the time that it takes to get them ramped, right? The revenue cost to the business is about $300,000 on an employee that should be making about $150 a year. All right. Okay. So we're going to jump through this real quick. If you have 10 people on your team, and we know that 78% are actively disengaged, I asked you to write down some names earlier. Check your names on your list. Did you come up with about 78% of your list? If you got 4 people working for you, that means 2 or 3 might be disengaged, and 1's a superstar. 1's actively disengaged, 2 are in a state of it disengaged, and 1 is a superstar. If you've only got 1 person working for you, we might have some trouble because you're going to have to figure out which one they are and where to go. And honestly, you know, I heard this from one of my leaders that have worked with me in the past. If you're a solopreneur, every single day you got to check yourself and figure out which one of these you are, right? Looking back on the day before, would I hire myself based on yesterday's performance? Was I an engaged employee yesterday? Was I an engaged employee today? Am I doing the things right now to grow my business? Am I hiring and spending time and focusing on engagement, right? Who knows? All right. So I want you to write this down too. What can you do? Something that you can do to grow engagement with your team members this year. How can you help your least engaged? I might have given away some of this earlier, but your least engaged to become your most engaged. It's one thing that you know you can do.
How about asking for their feedback or input?
Yeah, love that. And Thomas, what I really love about you jumping in and chiming in is you're not one of my coaching clients. They've all got a cheat sheet. They've literally, you know, should be using one of these things. But, so yeah, love it. Asking for their feedback, asking for their input, getting their buy-in, right? 100%.
How about incentives?
Incentives. Like what, Steve?
Metrics that they hit, and by if they hit a certain metric, they get some sort of I don't know, small bonus or some other non-monetary incentive.
Yeah.
Putting
Great.
the carrot in front of the donkey, so to speak.
Yeah, well, I love that too, 100%. And it felt weird calling you Steve, by the way. I should just be calling you Pipich, but as I said it out loud, it felt very strange.
Fair enough.
You know, to talk to a bespoke individual like yourself. So, 100%. In fact, that's one of the things that I love to do inside of teams. Shar and Irene will tell you they've all got Cyberbacker Maryland gear in the Philippines. You know, we hit some goals and they got some cool items. I've got a Maryland cutting board that we found out of bamboo that was like cut into some bamboo. This cutting board costs 5 times to ship to the Philippines that it costs to buy. But we hit some goals and I wanted to make sure that the team got it. You know, what can you do to add incentives? When I worked for Tesla, like literally, and I know my dad's done this before too, like trips to Hawaii, right? But it wasn't just the trip to Hawaii. It was the swimming with the sharks. It's the jet pack, right? The getting kidnapped in Vegas, you know, as an event, going whitewater rafting, go-karts, you know, the indoor go-karts, you know, have an experience day. One of the reasons Diana took us to Florida to golf with John Maxwell's Golf Pros, the golf course we went to is a $100,000 a year membership golf course. There's not many people that would pay $100,000 to become a member at a golf course. But the guys that were in that picture, in that golf picture, one of them, his brothers, just won the Masters this year. The other guy writes for Golf Digest and used to play for the Harlem Globetrotters. Like, Like the people that she puts you in touch with and the experiences that she wants you to have are, like Stephen was saying, like what can you do to create a scenario with your team to really get them excited. And so that's one of the things that Diane actually took us through as we were down there. She talked to us about the 5 C's of leadership. I'm going to hit those with you real quick here. I want everybody to just chime in. If you see one that you've got some input on, jump in and tell us what's going on, or what that means to you. Because the leading causes of turnover: not feeling supported and not having that greater sense of purpose and the vision. It's manager versus leader. We manage processes, but we need to be a people leader. So in the law of navigation, what happens a lot of times, and this is from the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, is that anybody can steer the ship, but the leader needs to chart the course. How often have you felt like this on your team, where you send your team out and they just don't feel like they're going the same direction? So as far as the 5 C's of vision, first C is a clear picture. So we're talking about a clear picture for your team. There's a book out there called The Song of Significance, which is one of the big things that Seth Godin talks about in The Song of Significance, is that a lot of people are joining companies that have a large vision, a picture that they can chase after, that they can feel good as far as making a global difference through their company. There was a realtor that I knew that took a portion of her commissions with her team and applied them to helping homeless families buy a home. Right? What can you do in your team to create a clear picture and a clear vision that your team can chase after and be a part of together? How do you get their commitment to that vision? What do you think? What's something that you can do to get their commitment to a vision? How do you get their buy-in? Thomas, you said some of this earlier.
I would say the way you could get someone committed is to give them an incentive.
Yeah. And ask for their input, right? Ask for their input.
Yes, that's right. And make them feel like they're part of the team. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tell you what, I think something better. I mean, incentives are good. Who doesn't love an incentive? But ask them their input, ask them what they want to do, and then give them ownership of that. Tell them, okay, hey, great, run with that.
There you go.
Whether sometimes it's not always going to be something that maybe gets implemented or actually used, but let them take ownership of something that they believe in.
Yeah, because once somebody owns it, it's theirs. And who wants their thing to get ruined, right? It was one of the great lessons I learned in leadership early in. If you put a person in charge of the birthday team at Chuck E. Cheese, in charge of the kitchen, in charge of the cash register, in charge of the merchandise prizes, like that employee begins to own it. Like, you're the one that makes them set it up. They start picking on the other employees that are ruining it, right? If 16-year-olds can have that accountability over making sure that everything is done correctly, what can we do with engaged adults, right? How do we get their buy-in? Give them ownership. I love it. Consistency. How do we make it consistent? How do we make a consistent vision and keep our employees consistent to hitting that vision and achieving that vision?
Well, regular meetings, you have to allot some time that you consistently yourself meet with your teammate or your employee.
Yeah, I had another coaching client this week that we were talking about how often do you change, do you correct your course, right? That inside of your team, when you give a direction, how often are you checking in to correct your course? Because the more we check in, again, not to take everything back to restaurant and retail, but we did hourly sales checks, right? Like we would literally run a report every single hour to know where we were in the day. I'm not saying that we need to do that with every salesperson on our team, but we should have a way that we're checking in with our teams like throughout the day to understand how our progress to goal looks. Morning meetings, afternoon meetings, and perhaps every single time a sale happens, we chime in on a group chat just to get people excited and motivated, right? When we're doing the good things. Love it. Constructive passion. What's the difference between constructive passion and destructive passion when we're talking about vision?
Are you a part of the problem or a part of the solution?
Yeah, are we building something up in our team and with our vision, or are we breaking it down? Right? Are we looking at our team and demolishing them, or are we looking at our company and our team and building something larger? Right? How are you applying that passion of your own and inside of your team, by the way? Derek, you mentioned it earlier with some negative attitudes, right? That if you've got somebody on your team that has that destructive passion, how are we steering that the right direction or eliminating it so that way we can focus on constructive passion? The final one is calm persistence. I used to call this pleasant persistent. So thank you, Diana, for giving us 5 C's to go with it. So pleasantly persistent, calm persistence. What does that mean? As we're looking to guide people on a path of vision, what is calm persistence? As a gimme. Come on. Everybody here knows this one.
I love the analogy of this one of having, the hand on the back as you guide them forward rather than trying to pull them forward with you.
Yeah. Yeah. Love that. Right. We're not yanking people forward. We've identified the tasks that we need to do. We've identified what's working on our team, especially, right? Because that's an 80-20. What's working and how can we just consistently persist and push and move and go forward together in order to achieve success. All right. This takes us into John because Diana set up, again, she's the vision leader. So she sets up this big vision. But once you've got a big vision, you need to be able to share it with your team in order to understand how to get there. And this is where John came up with his big bucket list. Who here knows what a bucket list is and has a bucket list? Things on your list that you want to make sure you do before you what?
You die.
That's
Kick the
right.
bucket.
That's right. Kick the bucket. So who here has a bucket list? Show of hands or put it in the chat. Somebody put something in the chat that, or say out loud that is on your bucket list. My wife wants to see a concert at the Red Rocks at some point, right? Like we've never done that. She thinks that would be really cool.
I want to hike Kilimanjaro.
What was it? Kilimanjaro?
Yep.
Nice. You and Amanda have been talking clearly. I'm there too. I'll do that with you guys. Let's set it up. Everybody on this call, who wants to climb Kilimanjaro? One of my items I just think would be wild is to watch the sunrise on the East Coast, like over the water, over the ocean, and then on the same day watch it set on the Pacific. I think that would be a really cool thing to just do one day. Totally possible. It wouldn't even be tough to plan out logistically. I just want to do it, right? It's just something I want to do in a day. See it come up on the East, on the Atlantic, and go down on the Pacific on the same day. I've just never done it. What about you? Something else for you? Who's got something on their bucket list? Come on, you got to have something. Allie, what's something on yours?
Sorry, I had to figure out how to unmute myself. Mine is I do actually have on mine to see a concert at Red Rocks also.
Ah, look at that. We should go together.
Yes, I know.
Let's do it. Love it. That's awesome. Cool. All right. So what's a big bucket list? What's the difference between a big bucket list and a bucket list? I'm going to tell you. A big bucket list has to be bigger than you. See that little person in there? That's not a kid. That's like, I don't even know. That's a big bucket. I can't imagine the size vehicle that needs to pick that bucket up. The bucket list has to be bigger than you. Everything that we just named, by the way, we could just stand up tomorrow to some degree and go out and do, right? Like If you can do the thing that you mentioned within a week, that's on the bucket list. If you need somebody else to help you complete it, that's part of the big bucket list. It can't be so easy that you could just get up and do it tomorrow. It has to be something that you're pulling other people into. You're either hiring people to help complete, or just gathering like-minded people in order to complete, or it has to be planned for. It's so big that you can't do it. If anybody was reading some of the drip campaign emails, one of the things that I love to look at when we're talking about a big vision, a clear picture, commitment, and consistency is if you look at your goal for 5 years from now for sales, right? If you're looking at your goal for 5 years from now for your sales, for your business, and you think you're on track to hitting that goal right now, like you look at everything you're doing and you think I'm on track to hitting that goal, then it's not big enough. If it doesn't scare you, it's not big enough. If you're not sure how you're going to get there, it's not big enough. I'm like thinking about some of the stuff I wrote down for my big bucket list while we were preparing for this class, and I'm getting like butterflies in my stomach thinking about the stuff that I want to do over 5 years. Shara and Irene have sat in the room with me while we've just gone crazy sometimes, like, talking about goals and big things that we want to achieve. And we get really excited when we realize that if you like 10x that, you 5x that, if you look at that huge goal that you've set for yourself in 5 years and then keep multiplying it until it's like so extreme that there's no way you can do it alone, all of a sudden your brain starts coming up with ways to hit it, ways to accomplish it. Once you realize you can't do it yourself and you're going to have to call on other people to help. Because that's how we grow. We get help. All right? Most of us don't have to do this alone. So we're going to start showing you some of John's big bucket list here. I think everybody on this call, except maybe you, Tom, is also part of the VIP group. Tom, reach out to me if you want to be too. So we're going to shoot through here. We've got the B. It's an acrostic. John's very good at making his list. Anybody that knows John well knows he makes his list. So John's big bucket list. We've got our B. B stands for be a high road leader. If you haven't read John's new book, High Road Leader, great book. He's also got another one called Jesus, the High Road Leader, where he talks about, are you taking the high road? Are you taking the middle road? Are you taking the low road in your actions? So if I was talking about being a high road leader, do you think I'm a constructive, passionate leader or a destructive, passionate leader?
Constructive.
That's right. When I'm looking for consistency and commitment from my team with the vision that we've set, how am I talking to them? What am I asking of them? How am I leading them? As a high road leader, what am I doing to get that commitment? Everybody's chimed in on some of these aspects today. Feel free to chime in some more. There's no wrong answer. I mean, there's some silly ones. I'll laugh about you behind your back. Don't worry about it. I laugh at everybody anyway. We meet with them regularly, right? If I want to guide somebody along on their commitment as a high road leader, I'm going to meet with them regularly. I'm going to help them steer their course, steer the ship. I'm going to make sure.
Hey, Jeff,
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I cut out there for a little bit, but what was the question?
How do you be a high road leader while leading
Show
your
up.
team through commitment and consistency? Show up. Love it.
Show up and be there, especially when you say you're going to. But yeah, just show up. Have a presence. Show that, one of the golden rules I like to follow is I will never ask anyone to do something I'm not willing to do myself. So show up, be involved.
Thomas, I could tell you a story. I'm not sure it would be recorded video appropriate, but you guys ever see Daddy Daycare? The movie Daddy Daycare with Eddie Murphy? There's a scene in that movie where Eddie Murphy walks into a bathroom while he's doing the daycare, and some kid had gone to use the bathroom and somehow got some stuff all over the bathroom. So he walks in, he's just like looking all over and can't believe how this little kid got his number 2 all over the bathroom. Thomas, that was a rule I'd set for myself, that I would never ask anybody on my team to do something I'd never done. And one day after a daycare, came to a Chuck E. Cheese, I walked into a bathroom that looked like that. And my assistant manager looked at me and she's like, all right, I'll get such and such and we'll get the cleaning stuff. And I was like, get enough for me too. And she's like, what, really? I'm like, I've never done anything like this before. So we scrub that together. And how much of an impact do you think that makes on your team to see that like you like literally rolled up your sleeves and got your hands dirty with them to help make sure that we all, again, are moving the same direction, right? I mean, that's a true story, and take an example of that inside of your business that sometimes we're asking our team to do some things that perhaps maybe we've never done, and you can really get a commitment when you are the leader that's walking alongside of them, right? So I stands for influence. John wants to add value to 2 million people each month. Whew. See, again, like those are the butterflies. Imagine having the impact to be able to influence 2 million people a month. Like that's extreme, that's crazy, that's amazing, right? To be able to set a goal for you or your team that just gives you butterflies in the stomach. What are you doing to enhance your community? How are you calling your team in to help? What big goal can you set for yourselves to just really impact others, right? In whatever way that you choose to do. G, he wants to give all of his money away before he dies. John is, I don't know exactly what John's worth, but if you want to add up his companies, which he probably doesn't own all of them, there's several hundreds of millions of dollars, right? As far as the value that they bring in on an annual basis. So you got to imagine that he's hitting close to that billion himself inside of those companies, and he wants to give it all away before he dies. One of the things he mentioned at this time, he was like, don't worry about my kids. He's like, they got plenty, He's like, they've already got plenty. He's like, and I make enough, consistently that I'm going to be okay too. But how do you give away hundreds of millions of dollars while impacting things? So part of my list, and this is what we're going to get together tomorrow to do, by the way, right? Is we're going to finish off the rest of the bucket list and we're going to build our own. Because I want all of us here to have big visions. So part of mine, we've got the be more. I want to be more daily by consistently every single day challenging myself to do something that takes me outside of my comfort zone. One of my favorite quotes that John says on a regular basis, if we think we have an area in our life that we don't think we have an opportunity to grow in, we won't. Every area of your life, you have an opportunity to grow. And so one of my parts of my big bucket list is finding that area for myself and for my team members and challenging us to do something daily to push that and to grow in that area in life. We've got a great wheel of life exercise we've done as a group with Inside Cyberbackers webinars in the past. If you ever want to do it with me, just let me know and we can work our way through it. I'm happy to coach you on what area in your life might be flat and what you can do to start growing there. My I is implementing growth at a large scale, at a great scale. What I would love to see, John motivated me to write this number down. That's been part of my mission for a while. But what I would love to see is 1 million people, 1 million team members using the Take 5 system weekly with their leaders. So that way I know 1 million people or 1 million workers are being poured into by their leaders every single week. Weekly. 1 million leaders or 1 million people being poured into by their leaders weekly using this Take 5 system that's super simple to use. And my G is to gather 10,000 to 100,000 business people, because in order to get to 1 million, I got to have either 10,000 people with 100 people working for them, or 100,000 people with 10 people working for them, or some number in between. But to gather 10,000 to 100,000 like-minded leaders who want to grow and want their people to grow together on not just calls like this, but in rooms regularly to be committed to growing their people. That's my BIG. If you guys want to hear what my bucket and list is, that's tomorrow. If you want to see John's, that's also tomorrow. But as I mentioned to you, I called John out on his book in the beginning. I met with him, and I don't know why. Like somebody asked me well, I won't even go there. All right, but sometimes when you meet your mentors, you ask silly questions. But the first question I asked John when I had a chance to just like sit down and have a chat with him, I noticed when reading between the editions of the book that in chapter 5, on the first edition, it was called the Law of E.F. Hutton. And chapter 13 was called the Law of Reproduction. And he changed it. Instead of the Law of E.F. Hutton, it became the Law of Addition. And it became the law of the picture, the big picture. And so I asked him, and this is what he said back to me. I said, John, like you wrote a book called The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, and then but these chapters are different. He's like, leave it to me to write that book. And then change the laws. But what he came back to say, and this is the part that I thought was impactful, was you need to make sure the story that you want to tell is tailored to your audience. As leaders, our audience is our people. And talk about how perfect that is to go along with a big bucket list, by the way, right? The law of addition. What are we adding for growth? And what big picture are we setting for our people? I told John then about a little system I followed for years that went on to become, the Take 5 leadership system that we've created. And I've led calls this way for years. Hire the right people, train them the right way, and then help them to achieve their dreams. And again, inside of the Take 5 system, that's really my goal for people, is to teach them how to hire, how to train, and how to help them achieve their dreams. What really excited me about Diana and John's approaches is that they both support the Take 5 system. Hiring right, training right, and then holding them accountable to achieving their personal and professional dreams. So if again, everybody in the VIP and anybody that's been following me for a while has probably had a chance to read the Take 5 ebook. If you haven't, check your email if you're in the VIP. If you're not in the VIP and you haven't, I'll give you a QR code here to scan in a second. But the idea is we want to be able to create a vision for our team. We want to set up our processes in such a way that the leaders lead by example, that we're buying in and engaging with the team, that we're forming a team around us that will help us accomplish our big bucket list, and that they in process are able to accomplish their own bucket list. And then we're going to get accountability in there to make sure that we're moving in and achieving our momentum. So if you've got a need for some of those tools in your business, and you know that you're losing $30,000 to $150,000 per employee that's not engaged, again, write down that average cost for you. How many disengaged employees do you have? Multiply that out so that way you understand what that real cost for your business is each year, and figure out what you can do to build this big bucket list and start using this Take 5 sheet weekly in order to build that engagement. So no charge. Scan the book, download the book. It comes with the forms are also on the same page. Take a look at the Take 5 form. There's a Take 7 form that's on the same page that allows you to ask your team members what their personal goal is that you can help them achieve that year and that week. And then again, anybody that's part of the VIP, any active client right now, anybody that's already bought the VIP, we obviously have a 2-hour call to build this out tomorrow and really dig into mastermind. You can scan this and join if you haven't yet. And then finally, if anybody wants to schedule a call with me to talk about an executive cohort we're forming to do the Take 5 or one-on-one coaching surrounding it, you can feel free to scan here too. Anybody have any questions on the big bucket list or on John's Take 5? Or my Take 5, John's big bucket list? I messed that up a little bit too.
I don't have a question or anything, but I want to say thank you for this information. It was good. I'm just a one team person, but I'm always looking to grow. So this,
Sharina,
yeah.
Sharina, you're not a one-team person.
Yeah, I got a cyberbacker.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
But,
Yes, you do.
but yes, sorry. Yes. But and thank you for correcting me with that, because I always do tell her, we're a team. So that's right.
Yeah,
So
and hopefully you're using this Take 5 with her too, Sharina. I know I've sent it to you before.
yeah, I got it. No, we haven't
Yeah.
used it, but I got it now. Yeah.
Love it, love it. So the form in there, like I use that with Shar and Irene, right? I use it with my coaching clients. It's a simple form that helps us to look at our goals, help us to assess where we're at, helps us to set our goal for the next week, and helps us to strategize around that together and figure out how we can help and get their buy-in. I use it in such a way that, again, like half the time, my calls with my team members, we're talking more about their personal goals than we're talking about their business goals. And there's a simple truth and secret to that. And I'll say this in the last 60 seconds. Anybody that wants to hang on can feel free to ask me more questions afterwards. But the simple truth behind this is none of us go to work because we want to make, like, especially if we're talking about our team members, like as solopreneurs perhaps, but none of us go to work because, like, we're desiring to make Bank of America a bigger entity, right? Like, like none of us, I can love my boss, and to some degree, like I want to see Classic Door grow if I'm slinging some hammers for Classic Door, right? But what I really want is to spend time with my kids, spend time with my family, have some fun vacations with them, and grow my personal life, right? And there's a lot of times that I sit down with coaching clients and even some cyberbacker clients and business owners that they know what their goal is in their business, but they don't know what they want to do in their personal life once they hit those business goals. A friend of mine that I had lunch with last week, and I asked him that question. He was talking some stuff that he's trying to do at work. And I said, well, if you achieve that at work, what is that going to get you at home? What's your goal for home, for life? And outside of sitting around a fire pit with his wife, once he retires, he doesn't know. So my challenge to each of you, as you build out this big bucket list for your business and for yourself, is to figure out where it is that you want to go. Because when we start managing our life in the same way that we manage sales in our business, we start seeing that we can achieve those different aspects in our life. And that comes by identifying the goal and the vision, talking about it every week, and figuring out what steps you need to do to get there. So thank you all for coming, and y'all can feel free to jump off, or if anybody has any questions, obviously feel free to hang out and ask me. Otherwise, I'll see many of you for the VIP tomorrow.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. This was awesome.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Good stuff, man. Talk soon.
Love it.